Hello, and that is right. Today we're going to talk again about a brand new Synology. I feel like I've said that a lot more recently than I have in a very long time, but unsurprisingly, we are here to talk about something a little bit more business, a little bit more enterprise, a little bit more right up there at the top of the pile. Today we want to talk about the new FS3410. It is the new 24-bay FlashStation solution from Synology. Again, this has been something of, when it comes to this area of the portfolio at least, something that Synology have really been stealth releasing. They tend to be quite loud about their rack station releases and their disk station releases when they come around, and even, dare I say, their routers currently. But when it comes to the FlashStation solutions, these are rack mounts that are designed for only SSD utilization and exceedingly high performance and high speed storage. The FlashStation series has always been one that Synology have gone, yeah, we've just done this, because they know that this area of their portfolio, and indeed this area of the storage medium as fabric storage and the like, grows in popularity, at least at the industry level. When it comes to the more populist level, it's nowhere to be seen. These are not solutions for the everyman, and the FS3410 is most certainly very much part of the paddock of those releases. This is a 2U rack mount device that can provide, that can support 24 individual 2.5-inch SATA SSDs inside. Before you go any further though, of course, this is a system, much like a lot of the enterprise-grade solutions from Synology, that prioritises and indeed formally supports only their own SSDs, the SAT5200 or the SAT5210, I believe it's known now. So if you are looking at populating this device, you are going to have to go with their SSDs. But at this tier on a solution like this, it's kind of part and parcel. These are definitely solutions that a lot of people buy for to be all-in-one solutions. At the end of the video though, I will talk a little bit how this system may not fit into that mold quite as neatly as many would like. But let's talk a little bit about the hardware specifications of this device. The CPU inside, it's a Xeon, luckily, when we're looking at a lovely Intel CPU, an 8-core, 16-thread Xeon. So again, we're looking pretty sweet at this point. It is the Xeon D15401. And again, that is a CPU, and particularly that family, that little gen of CPU we have seen dotting around on previous generation Synology devices in one form or another. This 8-core CPU there has a 2.1 GHz clock speed that can be burst up to 2.7 on each of those 8 cores. And again, this is a pretty good CPU. There is good and there is bad about it. Actually, when I think about it, first and foremost, it's got a 10,000 score or higher. I think it's like 10,100 or so over on CPU Benchmark, which is generally my preferred CPU tick box of choice. But on the same time, it's not the newest CPU of the pack, arriving at Q1 2016. Now, we're kind of used to that in the server market. Very rarely do we see cutting-edge new CPUs arrive, same year on these, but still, this CPU's got a little bit of dust on it for my liking. When it comes to the memory on this device, it arrives with 16 gig of DDR4 ECC RDIMM memory there inside that can be upgraded to 128 gigabytes of memory there, and that's over 4 slots, so 4 Synology 32 gig modules inside there. So again, that's some serious hardware on day one to be playing with, whether you go with the base model or upgrading it and scaling this up, which when it comes to flash storage, you generally have to. 16 gig, when you get the high performance out of these devices with the base external connections, or when you scale it up, something I'll talk about later on, 16 gig, you're going to have to go a little bit higher there indeed. There's the full complement of Synology applications in DSM 7.1 supported on this device that we talked about before. There's also some of the dedicated flash stuff there, like RAID F1, which for those that aren't aware is comparable to normal RAID, but it's a far more kind of selective failure configuration based more on endurance, which of course SSDs and particularly flash servers with 24/7 massive pounding use is going to be a factor. So again, I do recommend looking up F1. I should really make a video on F1 now I think about it. In terms of external connectivity, we've touched on there. Yes, there's 1 gigabit Ethernet port. Of course, there's 1 gigabit Ethernet port. It's a Synology, but don't worry, there's way more than that. There's a couple of 10 gigabit Ethernet ports on there. Copper 10G base T, tick, for me there. So again, The base level connectivity there of well in excess of 2000 megabytes per second is going to be a good way to start. There's also upgradability in those network connections with 2 PCIe Gen 3 x 8 upgrade slots there, and with Synology rolling out things like that multi-port 10G card, and of course that dual port 25 gigabit Ethernet fiber card. That is very much the target for a device like this, with 24 SATA SSDs. I say spinning, what they're not spinning, they're going to be reading there. Sorry about my phone knocking off there in the background. There's a couple of USB ports on there, but frankly, who cares? When you're looking at a device like this, those USB ports hardly ever going to be used for any meaningful external storage. Maybe kind of patch or update stuff, there may be some stuff for some VMs, but predominantly that's going to be for your UPS and your high-end peripheral management devices there. There's a comms port too. In talking about power, the device has got 2 PSUs there for redundant power supply support, each one 550 watts there, so again, long-term slot in and out there on the rear. The device itself, again, being optimized through the FlashStation series, and certainly for that kind of high performance and intelligent durability use in you know, when we're talking about AI processes there and enormous fast acting global databases, this is going to have a desirable audience, just not the kind of audience that watches YouTube videos, you know. But at the same time, this device forms part of that larger growing range of FlashStation devices, which Synology tend to be a little less loud about. And this is, yet again, we've already talked about one earlier this year in the FS3410, another FlashStation solution that's sliding there to fill out that portfolio, where all of a sudden we've blinked and suddenly realised the brand has quite a few irons in the fire as far as this goes. To put it into perspective, we've now got the lowest end tier that was released around about 2.5 months ago in the FS3500. That knocks around for $2,500. Then, prior to this one arriving, we had the FS3400 that's looking, you know, that's been around now for maybe 2.5 years now. And that system is $6,500. And right there at the top, the FS6400 at $12,000 when you shop around. That system, insane price point though that may sound, is still by far one of the most powerful yet affordable in the context of FlashStation servers out there for flash rack mount use. Now this system is going to slot between the 2500 and the 3400. There's no price tag at the moment, but I think it's going to sit somewhere at that 4,500 to 5,000 mark. Who knows what the tax will be based on where you are in the world. But I think this is going to slot neatly between those two devices because of the architecture and the way it's built up and the number of bays, with the FS2500 being that 10 bay system, or maybe 12 bay, I might have got that mixed up. But still, having that nice big old range there from Synology, they flesh out this portfolio, and of course, providing their own range of SSDs in both NVMe and SATA SSD. This is going to be a growing thing for them. Now, I mention that because there's, for me, if you know, the way the market is going, and again, I mentioned fabric there, the reason I bring that up is most people right now in 2022 are gearing more towards U2, more towards SAS SSD, more towards that area where SATA SSDs that are pumping out 450 to 550 megs at peak aren't looking that fast anymore. So I'm kind of surprised that we've seen this continued fleshing out of the FlashStation series, but not yet Synology showing off a U2, maybe even a U3, taking advantage of PCI 4 flash solution from them. I know their range of NVMEs are largely designed for caching, hence their high durability, but arguably lower performance threshold when compared to a lot of NVMe SSD providers right now. But I'm very surprised that they went with showing this system off, which in of itself within the range makes a lot of sense, that they haven't shown off a U2 or shown off a SAS big boy solution that's moving into that cross mixture hybrid storage system. Then they've got the cloud sorted, they've got a FlashStation series, and they've got the desktop units there. Where are the U2 and the SASs? But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? That's everything we know so far about the FlashStation FS3410 with regards to release and availability. Well, it is already listed over in the Eastern websites in Taiwan. We talked about this a little bit on when we were talking about hardware shortages around the world and how the pandemic and global crises, social political difficulties and conflict, and of course environmental concerns have led to a fragmented release pattern from most of the electronic companies right now, not just Synology. And whereas we used to enjoy a period of releases all arriving globally around the world, we're still seeing, because of stock levels and availability of hardware and changing audiences, releases being considerably more fragmented and feeling a little bit like the 1980s when we had to wait a long time in Britain for a movie when the US had already had it for ages. That's something the world is kind of getting used to, and hopefully something we will ease out of in the next 12 to 18 months, but we'll have to wait and see. But this has been the FS3410. If you want to learn more about this, there's a link in the description to the article over on NAS Compares. We covered this a little bit on the Data News of the Week video, and we will be taking a closer look at the FlashStation series relatively soon, so do stay tuned for that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Click like if you've enjoyed the video, because it helps me understand what I'm doing right or wrong. And of course, click subscribe if you want to learn more about this and continued releases from Synology in 2022 and of course 2023. Otherwise, the free advice section is linked below, and other than that, I will see you next time.